This is Royce White, Republican Senate candidate for the great state of Minnesota. A former NBA player and mixed martial artist, Royce White is running on a platform that promotes family values, including beating women, lying to authorities, and refusing to pay child support until threatened with jail. Is this accurate? Oh, this is his biography. Well, what is his political platform? Women are too mouthy. What the fuck? Make no mistake, the Republican Party of 2024 is still the party of the Southern strategy. The Southern strategy, just like Project 2025, is rooted in white supremacy. The Southern strategy is Republicans' historical effort to appeal to white voters in particular and play to their racial grievances and opposition to the civil rights movement. It is a strategy that marked a significant shift in the political landscape of the United States, particularly in the South. The Southern strategy involved emphasizing states' rights, law and order, and a limited federal government. Sound familiar? These are positions that are coded language for opposing civil rights without explicitly using racial language or rhetoric. While this strategy started in and focused on Southern states, it has bled with significant ripple effects on politics and elections in other regions of the country, including the Midwest. As a result of these nationwide political strategies, the Republican Party has been and continues to be the party of whiteness. Rather than evolve and literally diversify, the party of whiteness has relied on policies of disenfranchisement at every level of government to maintain their chokehold of power and to maintain white supremacy in America. And while some more moderate and progressive Republicans would understand that this would be a problem for the party in the future, diversifying the party would jeopardize the one thing they hold most dear, and that is whiteness. The 2004 Democratic National Convention would hit Republicans squarely upside the head like a big old brick, because that is when Barack Obama hit the national stage in an undeniable way. And on that day began the talk that this man could be president of the United States. 2 years later, by 2006, he was off and running, and a large majority of the nation was with him, including Republican voters. So we would not get one Obama presidency, we would get two. And while many people made the completely ignorant and uninformed assumption that having a black president would make living in America easier for black people, in reality, it made it harder. And we all knew that the pendulum would swing back violently in the other direction eventually. And as Republicans began grasping for straws of diversity, the pendulum swung. Republicans became the party of no during the first Obama administration, and by the time he was out of office and 45 was in, Republicans were making it clear that they had returned to their roots as the Party of Supremacy. Nevertheless, as we have discussed before, they face the same challenge, the need to diversify and reimagine exactly what white supremacy looks like. And to do that, you need Black and other people of color trumpeting your cause, your policies, and your messages. White supremacy is a mindset. It shows up both consciously and subconsciously. A white supremacist is someone who believes in the superiority of white people over individuals of other races and advocates for the dominance of white people in societal, political, and economic spheres. They design and advocate for policies and laws that uplift and protect the privilege of whiteness while harming those who don't have the same protection. What the party needs now more than ever is those that give the appearance that all of this is okay, that it's normal, that it's even necessary to make the country great again. And because Black and other people of color don't naturally gravitate towards the Republican Party, they rely upon finding and speaking and appealing to voters inflicted with their own internalized white supremacy. And within the elected leadership of the party, they look for anyone who is not white who can be their token. A token is someone who is being included in a group or situation primarily to give the appearance of diversity rather than being valued for their individual contributions or perspectives. If you are a Black person or a minority of color in a predominantly white space, you may have experienced being tokenized and being conscious of the fact that you are being tokenized by the people around you. But what is very interesting about the Republican Party is that they have managed to find people who want to be their token. And in situations where a Black person is tokenized in a majority white space, such as the Republican Party under Donald Trump, this is a situation that often involves superficial gestures of inclusion that don't even begin to address the deeper issues of anti-Black and anti-POC policies and culture of the Republican Party. One of the most recent examples of a token for the Republican Party is Herschel Walker. Who can forget the nightmare of that campaign? A former football star, no prior political experience, and he ran as a Republican candidate because he was a former University of Georgia football star and a Heisman Trophy winner. He had significant name recognition in Georgia. And name recognition for Herschel Walker translated to popularity. And even though none of those things were associated with who he is currently as a human being, he was able to ride on his reputation as a former football player to run for office. And as you recall, he was strongly endorsed by President Donald Trump, who played a significant role in encouraging him to run, in fundraising for him, and nearly getting him into office. Herschel Walker's campaign focused on traditional conservative values, including support for law enforcement, which he claimed to be one, opposition to abortion, even though he paid for one, and advocating for border security. He emphasized his outsider status, presenting himself as someone who could bring a fresh perspective to Washington, D.C. Republicans didn't particularly care to vet the qualifications or the quality of the candidate. For a party that believes it has the moral high ground, it keeps finding tokens who challenge that narrative. Herschel Walker, it came to be known because he ran for office, was marred by controversy, including allegations of domestic violence, questions about his business dealings, and inconsistencies in his public statements, right up until the point that he lost the election. But nevertheless, he had the Republican Party of the state of Georgia and the Republican Party of the United States of America in his corner and fully supporting him. Potentially, Republicans learned from the Herschel Walker debacle that even though they are working tirelessly to shift the political landscape in Georgia, there are challenges faced by a D-list celebrity who is trying to become a political candidate and has absolutely no qualifications for the job. And so they're trying again in Minnesota with Royce White. This is a generous description, but Royce White is a political activist, former professional basketball player, and outspoken critic of the political and economic establishment in the United States. A vocal critic of systemic racism, economic inequality, and the military-industrial complex, his political views are often described as anti-establishment. Yes, an outsider, bringing an outside fresh perspective to D.C. And of course, he has positioned himself as a champion of the working class and marginalized communities, even though he knows absolutely nothing about them. In 2022, Royce White entered the political arena by running as a Republican candidate for Minnesota's 5th Congressional District, challenging incumbent Democrat Ilhan Omar. His campaign was notable for its direct criticism of the Democratic Party, as well as his attempts to engage with voters who might not typically align with the Republican Party. Yes, as any good token would, peel votes from one side and bring them over to the Republican side. Now, White will face Democrat Amy Klobuchar in November for the U.S. Senate. And he is trying to sharpen his messages from 2022. He claims that mental illness in contemporary society is caused by materialism and a decline in spirituality. He also calls for an American Jubilee, which would eliminate taxes. Recently, Royce White got a lot of attention in the media because he chose to weaponize his race in a very specific way, playing on the stereotype that black men beat women to keep them in line. He said that as a black man, women are too mouthy. White has defended his comments by arguing that his views are rooted in a broader critique of societal changes that he believes have led to the erosion of traditional family structures and values. And perhaps that is his justification for refusing to pay child support up until the day the law says they're going to throw his sorry ass in jail. Nevertheless, his hatred towards women is an issue that he discusses in the context of his broader political and social critiques, which include skepticism towards mainstream feminism and a focus on what he sees as the importance of maintaining certain traditional roles for men and women. Why, Mr. White, I'm so interested to know how it is that you would put and keep mouthy women in a traditional role. Does beating them have anything to do with it? Like Herschel Walker before him, Royce White has a number of issues that have come to light because of his heightened celebrity, D-list as it may be, as a political candidate for U.S. Senate. These include, but certainly are not limited to, accusations of campaign financial crimes by organization watchdogs which have filed complaints against him. Something about a strip club. Oh yes, those family values, those traditional women. Domestic violence, deadbeat parent, and very much so anti-civil rights for Black people, other people of color, women, and members of the LGBTQIA+ community. Carrying water is a metaphorical phrase often used to describe someone who supports or defends a particular person, group, or cause, often in a way that is blindly loyal or without critically questioning their actions or motives. Carrying water implies that the person is doing the work of defending or promoting someone else's agenda to their own detriment or without necessarily believing in it themselves. For example, if someone is carrying water for a political party, such as the Republican Party underneath the leadership of Donald Trump, it means they're advocating for that figure's policies or defending them from criticism without considering or caring about the full implications or the motherfucking facts. Said another way, oh, these niggas is cooning. In contemporary usage, coonin refers to the act of a Black person engaging in behavior or adopting attitudes that are seen as pandering to racist stereotypes or seeking approval from white people at the expense of their own racial identity or dignity. This term is often used by us, with us, to criticize individuals who are perceived to be aligning themselves with or reinforcing negative stereotypes about Black people, especially in the presence of non-Black audiences. Now, where is that familiar? Oh yes, that's right. Beat those mouthy women. Carrying water, token, and cooning are highly charged terms that reflect complex issues of identity, of race, and of internalized racism and self-hatred that the Republican Party masterfully exploits in its ongoing efforts to change the face of what white supremacy looks like in the party, while at the same time enacting hateful policies and laws all across the country. Now, if that felt too harsh for you, then consider this. When Republicans refer to someone as a DEI hire, what they are implying is that the person was hired primarily due to their race or their gender or another minority status to fulfill diversity goals or to change optics to give an appearance of diversity, rather than based on their actual merits or qualifications or even votes cast to put them in office. But what is super ironic about the way that they have turned this phrase is that Royce White is the Republican Party's latest DEI token candidate for U.S. Senate. He was selected and supported for diversity optics and antics, and not for his qualifications, experience, or skill set. And that is why it will be quite interesting to see if he can manage to get to Election Day without going to jail first.